You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 5th part of, What If Naruto Makes Female Ninja Army? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Mad Hat 886 on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Naruto sat in his room as he reads through books and scrolls. Behind him were 2 of the killer bees, Jianyu and April were with him as the others had the day off. They kept themselves busy as they read some mangas, as Naruto buried himself into learning how to be a ruler. Currently he's reading up on the way the army of Mordor works. Like the Delmos, the army is made up with mostly women, as young and strong men were more in demanded as husbands than as soldiers. A book listed off the types of troops of metal and how they fare against ninjas. Naruto, shouldn't you be getting ready for tomorrow? Jianyu asked, looking up from her book. The girls of the school are making plans and they're going to be all over you as Glycin's grandmother on a cute girl when she was younger, April said. Hey! Glycin shouted as she popped her head into the room. I know that, Naruto said, closing the book he was reading. But things are already taken care of. Really, by who? Jianyu asked. By me, a woman said, stepping in the room, stepping out from behind Glycin, who lead her to Naruto. Both of the killer bees gasped at the woman standing before them, as they know her only too well from what they read about her or seen on TV. Shasti was an incredibly sissy and stately warrior who could not fail to turn heads. Radiating a commanding aura, this woman of 26 made them feel very much like a small child when next to her beguiling beauty. An immaculately chiseled pale face was framed by locks of hair the hue of fresh fallen snow, contrasted with cold, piercing golden eyes and full, pouty lips that took on an ashen red color. Her soft pallid hair, wondrously devoid of any evidence of either travel or battle, was tied together into a long simple braid that traveled down the base of her back. A black eye patch graced Shasti's left eye, intricately monogrammed with golden trimming, and only served to amplify rather than detract from the experienced warrior's already considerable allure. The fitted banded mail that she wore accentuated the woman's curves and familiarity with battle, whose movements were still graceful and swift despite the armor's riveted protective plates. Everything about the captain's looks and demeanor commanded admiration, but that was not all. Those who had the opportunity to witness Shasti abilities with her twin sabers strapped to her back, earning her respect and esteem as one whose skills matched or exceeded even their own. A captain who could have become a general but decided not to because she would miss the field work and hands-on work. Once she's married, she would be placed into the troops as she was the prefect choice. The reason why is that she always completes her mission, but what caught Queen Carline's attention was that if her mission would endanger bystanders, Shasti would always do things the hard way instead of taking the easy way that would cause great harm. That's the reason why she always sung a song that's been passed down in words that no one alive understands, but a song that was sung when someone knows that they would die in battle. Veo ao. Ahom VERYYYY. Veo ara. Jurhyum Brunnen G. Shasti here has been put in charge of overseeing the dance catching thing, Naruto said in a bored tone of voice, not really caring about the dance. Yes, and I'm here to give you all of the details of your protection. I already told your grandparents, Shasti said. Good, Naruto said as he catches the eyes of the 3 girls in the room. You 3 listen up so you can tell the others when you see them. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. This is an example of a armored adaga, Ms. Kane said as she points to the woman soldier wearing spiky armor and holding 2 large shields shaped as a square and has in the center a large spearhead standing in front of the classroom. With so many soldiers around the school for protection once the chase begins, Ms. Kane asked some of the elite unit members to come into her class to show her class the difference between some of soldiers. They wields a special weapon created from the joining of a spear and shield. Ineffective against heavy armor or long-reaching weapons. They're created to be ninja killers as their weapon allows them to fight against ninjas at close quarters while protecting them as well. Since ninjas don't wear armor, they're faster but has no defense other than the clothes on their backs. Speed counts but not if it means you can only run. Adaga are trained to be able to run and jump in their spiky armor, which also serves to stop any foe from grabbing a hold of them and also be able to use their body as a weapon. Their shields are able to withstand tons of damage before breaking, and are able to withstand the most powerful of jutsus to a point where it breaks, and that goes for their armor as well. All soldiers of metal wear top-of-the-line armor and wield the best weapons that come from metal's metal works. Ms. Kane, what's the difference between nins and soldiers? One of the Element Country students asked. Good question, Ms. Kane said. The main difference is that while nins on the most part are strong and powerful, they almost never been trained to work in large numbers. Soldiers on the other hand are trained to be aware of their fellow soldiers and help out or work together when on the attack or defense. Soldiers, unlike nins, wear armor that allows them to rush into battle into the thick of things, while nins unarmored must use their speed to avoid blows that a soldier would be able to take. But aren't nins more trained than soldiers? One of the students asked. Yes, in most cases they are, but here in metal and other Western countries the soldiers are trained to be able to fight ninjas. The standard metal soldier is on par with the jounin level nins of the Eastern countries on skill level, and since the exams of the East only allow a limited number of nins to raise to the higher levels, while here soldiers raise in rank by group. In most cases the side with the greater numbers will beat the one with the smaller one even if they're more skilled. And there is also the fact that most of the soldiers of metal are at the Black Delmo level, as that's the level that children of the lower grades have before they start high school or go to ninja school to raise in the Delmo ranks. And Black Delmos are at the same level as Chunin, along with the fact that we don't fail a student because they can't do one jutsu, Ms. Kane explains. Don't their armor slow them down? Another student asked. Well, for some of us that's true, the Adaga soldier said. But so what if we're not as fast as unarmored ninjas? A nin would have to get close to fight, and we're better at fighting than ninjas. Like nins who uses pressure point attacks to fight are all but useless when fighting one of us. Our armor protects us from those kind of attacks. Besides, we always march with Delmos to handle any speedy nins that we might come up against, and Delmos are able to handle any nins that they meet. The door of the classroom burst open as a red Delmo pokes her head in. Dilly, he's here. He is, the Adaga soldier named Dilly said as she looks out of the window, causing the students to look out as well. Out in the courtyard surrounded by female soldiers and Delmos was a tall man just under 7 feet. He has long silver hair and bright cyan eyes with cat-like pupils, and is portrayed in a black coat decorated with metallic pauldrons. But what caught everyone's eye was that he was carrying an extremely long sword, called a masamune, that's used to battle large demons and dragons. Because of the size and weight of the weapon, only someone of great size or strength and skill are able to use it. It's Sephiroth, Ms. Kane said, staring at the man with a slight blush. Who's that? Toph asked. He's the strongest of the male soldiers of metal, Anero said. All of the older unmarried women always talk about him, Junie adds. He's the captain of the Carnisex unit, Julie said, pointing to a group of women that stood near their captain. They were giants, extremely tall, long-limbed, standing taller than most of the other soldiers in the yard. Some were even taller than their captain, the shortest stood over 6 feet. The reason why all of the soldiers were so tall in the unit was easy to see, as all of them carried a different type of sword, which all stood 5 or more feet tall. They all wore medium-weight armor underneath purple-colored uniforms. The Carnisex unit have become the best great sword unit of metal under the command of Sephiroth, Noembalu said out loud to the other students. They all have their eyes on their captain and have all taken up learning to fight with a great sword like he does. And since only very tall people are able to wield great swords like normal-size swords, all of the soldiers of great height with sword skills are fighting to join the unit. They are also part of the Praetorian Guard, who are the special force of soldiers used by the royal family, Ms. Kane spoke up. They're the elite soldiers of metal, with each battalion of 1,000 soldiers under the command of a captain. They were formed to root out corruption in the army, only answering the commands of the royal family and the 4 grand generals. Only the best and the most loyal of soldiers are hand-picked to become a Praetorian. But of course that's before grandfather got to pick out some of the captains, Naruto said, pointing to 2 Praetorian captains. The first one was stunningly appealing and has long teal hair, with an orange bandana on her forehead. The other a gorgeous dark-tanned blonde who was busy playing with a schoolyard ball that was left out, which ended up hitting the first captain in the face when the second one kicked it too hard, and their troops watched as the first one chased the second one around the schoolyard. Kion and Mihoshi haven't changed much since. I went to school with them, Ms. Kane sighed, watching her 2 friends act like they always do. And they were made Praetorian captains, a student asked, watching the action below. Grandfather said that for a Praetorian it doesn't matter if they're the best. It's the level of trust that you have for them that counts, Naruto said. I rather have someone who I can trust rather than someone who I don't. Hey look, it's Shasti, Dilly said, pointing out the captain in charge of the safety of the school. In the courtyard. Shasti watched as Kion chased Mihoshi around the schoolyard, which she saw much of when she used to went to school in the same year as they did. Currently Kion got a hold of a bag of ball and throwing them at Mihoshi's head. She just shook her head at her 2 fellow captains, wondering why her king placed them as Praetorian captains. Some things will just never change, Shasti said, watching as the other Praetorian guards watch as their captains ran around the yard. But then again it's for the best, Sephiroth said, appearing next to her. How long are you going to let them do this? Shasti asked one of the only 2 male Praetorian captains. Sephiroth is the most talked about as he was the only one who is still without a wife, not to mention that the stories of his beauty were indeed false. The reality of him was not less, as she had expected, it was more, far more. Kion still has half a bag left, Sephiroth said, blocking a ball as he flew at his face. Yeah, it's better to just let her run out of ball and let out her anger, Shasti said, ducking her head as a ball flew past. Have you and Dracula Hawkeye Mihawk duel yet? We crossed swords but it ended with a draw, Sephiroth said. We're too evenly matched. He isn't known as the strongest swordsman in the world for nothing. You're the only one who has crossed swords with Mihawk when he goes all out and still alive to talk about it, Shasti said. Even with her skills she knows that much better warriors have tried to beat Mihawk before but all failed. But still neither of you are able to best each other. How about you can make yourself be able to last longer than Mihawk by having endurance training, Mihoshi said, appearing next to them. Get back here. Kion shouted, spotting her prey. Eep. Mihoshi said as she hides behind Sephiroth. Enough already, Sephiroth said, sending a powerful wave of chakra through his eyes, freezing Kion in her tracks. Thank you. Mihoshi shouted as she hugs her bouncy body against his back. Now let's get you that endurance training. Which, I mean, we have a org. Really? The Praetorians around their captains asked, their eyes bright with hope. Not now, Sephiroth said, popping their hope of having SEC with him. We're here to protect Prince Naruto. Both the Queen and the King order us to be here in case there's an attack on their grandson. Once the final bell rings we must stand by and be ready to defend the prince from anything that might appear. All soldiers to your stations. You heard him, Kion said, regaining movement. Everyone to your assigned stations. Yes, Ma, the Praetorian said. You think this is a bit much? Shasti asked. There are already city guards as well as Red Delmo here. But having 4 units of Praetorian here as well is a bit of an overkill. When dealing with the protection of the Prince of Metal one mustn't leave anything to chance, Sephiroth said. But if one overthinks what a foe might do, the foe can gain a huge advantage by doing the most simply action that they can take, Shasti pointed out. Well said, Sephiroth responded. One mustn't think that a foe is able to think of a grand plan all of the time when it could be as simple as grabbing something when everyone's backs are turned around. Like when Mihoshi took your piece of pie when you were talking to one of your soldiers. Shasti asked, smiling a bit. Yes, like that, Sephiroth said. Also the fact that our prince is growing stronger with each passing day, Shasti said. She remembers how Naruto pushes himself in his training, tearing his muscles, to the point he cracks his bones. The medic teams work overtime in making sure that Naruto didn't break his body. He's already strong enough to take on some of the strongest white Delmos now, Sephiroth said. But only because he's pushing his body to their very limits fueled by his rage. He mustn't become like his great-grandmother, Shasti said as the memory of the iron will of her reign was still fresh in the minds of many. Back in the classroom. "Alright kids," Ms. Kane said to her students back in their seats, and the two soldiers had left to get to their stations around the school. "All those who already have dates please leave for the gates." "Well, see you all later," Helga said as she and the rest of the kids who have dates left the room. "Now before the bell rings we need to review the rules of the chase," Ms. Kane spoke up. "The boys get a head start before the rest of you girls are let out to catch them. When you catch a boy, the girl must lead the boy to the school gate. If the girl is part of a group, then the boy will have to dance with all of the girls of the group as long as the paper with the names of all the girls have already been given. Any late add-ons isn't allowed and will be voided." "And what happens when we boys just stand there?" Naruto asked. "That's why you all be wearing these," Ms. Kane said, holding up a name tag. "For those boys who won't be led by a girl. The girl is able to just grab this name tag from the boy and run to the gate instead. It was added for the boys who are disabled. Since my dad fell down the stairs when Mom and her friends tried to get to the gate with him when he's stuck in a wheelchair," Enero said. "Her father has never let her mother or any of her friends forget the idea of theirs of getting down the staircase instead of using the elevator because it was faster. But they've been making up for that for years now, as she has plenty of half-sisters to play with when she was little and aunts as well." "Yes, after that the name tags were made so that it'd be safer for the boys," Ms. Kane said. "And what about fighting the other girls?" Toph asked. "We can't use jutsus or chakra base attacks," Iam said. "Or weapons and DRGs," Kasumi adds. "To fight off another girl you must use your body as a ram to push them back or hold them," Ms. Kane said. "Because of the last few dance chases ended up with girls with broken jaws among other things, there is no punching or kicking. The guards as well as the Delmo around the school be watching for that, and any girl caught won't be allowed to go to the dance. And for those girls who are engaged to Naruto, it will look bad for you when the queen starts rooting out girls from the engagement." "Fine by me," Naruto said, standing up. "I'll be taking my head start now." "And we're going too," Junie said as she and the other killer bees stood up. "We're going to make sure that Naruto is kept safe." "Alright kids," Ms. Kane said, tossing Naruto his name tag. "Just remember that you have to stay on the school grounds." "Right," Naruto said, pinning the tag to his shirt. He left the room followed by the killer bees with the rest of the bees waiting outside the classroom. "All boys come up and get your name tags and leave the classroom," Ms. Kane said to the remaining boys in the class. They stood up and grabbed their name tag and left the room to find a good place to hide. Throughout the school the girls in the classrooms watched as the clock hands move, waiting for the bell to ring and that they'll be able to go after the boys. Most of the girls of the school already had a boy in mind to take to the dance. This is their big chance to score some points with him, as they'll show him what fun they could have together at the dance. And for the girls of the Leaf Village, this is their only chance of getting anywhere near Naruto and the only hope that their village has of surviving the wrath of the Prince of Metal. In the royal palace in the dining chambers, Queen Carline sat at a long table with places for 20, but it was only set for a handful of people. Besides the maids placing plates of food on the table, only 4 other people were seated with her. The 4 are the highest-ranking leaders of the Army of Metal. Each of them oversees the protection of a section of metal that is broken down in 4 areas. Each of them have a command of a region of 1,000,000 or more soldiers and a mix of Delmos. Each of the Grand Generals have 8 lower-rank generals who command an army unit with lower-rank officers serving them. The Grand Generals are considered to be the strongest warriors of the Western lands. They all been busy with their sections, so it be their first time to see their new prince face up. The first is Kyoshi, a giant of a woman standing well over 7 feet and the General of Earth, one of the 4 Grand Generals of Metal. Her traditional weapons are golden metal fans which, in addition to her manner of dress and style of fighting, were adopted by the young warrior women of Kyoshi Island, her homeland which rests in a massive lake in the middle of metal. Clad in ornate, armored green kimonos, metal headdresses, and a geisha-like makeup designed to intimidate opponents. She protects the western parts of metal from any dangers that might come. She doesn't take her duties lightly and is feared due to her willingness to do whatever it takes to protect metal. The next woman was a small, old woman with immense magical-like powers. She served as the court magician as well as the general of fire, Hinako. She had learned to tap into her spiritual aura using the energy what to others look as magic. She always wears white robes, a golden sash and a golden sunburst crown she always wore since she was a young woman. She's the longest serving of the Grand Generals who was around when Queen Carline's mother ruled. Some of her officers under her are her descendants. The other generals look to her for wisdom time to time, as she possesses timeless wisdom and powerful spiritual energy. She protects the northern parts of metal and watches their ancient enemy nation Land of Gems closely. She is slow to anger like a mountain, but once she does it's like a mountain falling on you. The third and youngest at 24 is Rushuna, who was made the Grand General of Air when the former one stepped down. Hunrock was the one who chose her from all of the others who were next in line, to the shock of many as all of the past Grand Generals were generals before moving up the ranks, as Rushuna was nothing more than a common foot soldier. He explained that by picking out a talented young soldier who he sees is quite capable of a commanding position, that she be able to see things with a clean slate. Instead of starting at the bottom of the ladder and work their way up until thoroughly brainwashed and obliged. As Hunrock didn't like who the old general never questions an order, saying that if an order is never questioned then how many wrong orders would then be given if the one who gives the orders never reviews their orders first. Rushuna is an extremely busty, blonde woman who was trained in the positive teachings and kind ideals of Tenchi. She is trained in the use of a crossbow, specializing in shooting to disable rather than to kill. She has excellent tactical analytical skills, being able to discern her opponent's weaknesses in the heat of battle and adjust accordingly to exploit them with the tools at her disposal. She oversees the eastern lands of metal, which are the most settled, as the element countries are the only countries that borders her section. Rushuna has a weakness for taking hot baths, and she indulges in this pursuit frequently. The last Grand General is Ellen, the General of Water. Short silvery hair that shined and blue eyes that showed love for life, dark skin, proving her as a woman of exotic beauty. Her body was slim and athletic with firm muscles from training, yet busty. She's known as the life-giving general, as she always helps those in need whenever she can. She wears colorful ribbons around her neck, ankles and wrists. A silver bikini covered her parts deemed indecent, but most people could not call any part of her as wrong. It wasn't out of SXL longing for them to want her in so revealing an outfit, no. Clothing would only bog down her natural beauty. She protects the southern lands of metal that borders the Great Kanto Desert and sends out patrols in search of travelers who get lost in the harsh environment. She always tries to maintain a good relationship with the Harad tribes, as her father is from one of the tribes, to help maintain the uneasy peace with the Harad tribes. All the outposts of metal freely gives water to anyone who asks for water. This is so that the trade wagons of metal can pass through the desert safely. It's nice to see you all again, Carline greeted them. It's been a while since we all been here, Ellen said as she holds a rack of meat between her hands, ripping a chunk out with her teeth. Her plate was nothing more than racks of meat, which are called manga meat. Wow, every time I see you, you're eating meat, Rushuna said as she ordered noodles. Well, that's what we mostly eat in the south, Ellen said. With the desert so close in the south lands, there are little farmland to grow crops with have to be imported from other parts of metal, so most people live off of farm animals who live off of the land. I hear that you've been having problems in the south, Kyoshi said. Yeah, there's a new iron mine on the border that one of the Harad tribes are claiming to be on their land, and the Rokake faction isn't making things any easier, Ellen said. The mine is being backed by the Rokake family, as they said that it would help provide jobs for their lands. They're only saying that because that would line their pockets, Hinako said as she has dealt with the Rokake faction for years. I'm going to have a meeting with the elder of the tribe along with someone of the Rokake faction to settle the claim, Carline said. What's the purpose of this meeting besides meeting your grandson? Hinako asked. The reason why is that the men who attack my grandson are part of wisdom, Carline answered. Wisdom, Hinako growled. No matter how hard we try to stamp them out, they always manage to survive. What reason does wisdom gain in killing Prince Naruto? Rashuna asked. Besides killing off the royal family bloodline, they be able to sell weapons to both sides when a civil war breaks open if metal doesn't have an heir, Carline explains. My mother rule was harsh, but if any good came out of it was that she had most of the members of wisdom haunted down, which I continued after she died. But some part of wisdom has survived. The weapons that the wisdom agents use are cutting edge, which we're still experimenting on. The alloys of the blades are still in the test labs. I'm looking into who leaked the data. Before the attack, the only alloy weapon I knew of is the one I'm going to be giving to Naruto. Wisdom has been a dagger for metal ever since its foundation, Kyoshi said. I had thought that under your mother's rule she had everyone with any connection to wisdom put to death. How can you be sure? So did I, but only wisdom knows how to make raging nostrum, as my mother had everyone who knew of it put to death and all files burn, Carline explains. All the agents of the wisdom carry that DRG, as anyone else wouldn't dare to use it, as once it wears off they die. Raging nostrum, I read about it. The only ones who can overpower someone who uses it is a Neanderthal, Rashuna said. That DRG pushes the human body to its maximum but at a steep price. But I have seen firsthand of a Neanderthal, my son-in-law, killing a wisdom agent under the DRG with one blow, Hinako said. Naruto, thanks to being a half-demon, easily killed one of the agents after he took the DRG, but wisdom won't stop till he's dead. For that reason, when all four of you return to your post, I want the word passed down for on the lookout for any wisdom agents. And to keep a close eyes on the two factions that have everything to gain if there isn't an heir for the throne, Carline said. So it's either the Barigo and the Rokake factions who has higher wisdom, Ellen said. Or maybe one of them took in some members during your mother's rule. I thought of that, but unlike my mother, I'm not about to do anything rash without proof of any wrongdoing first, Carline said. My mother did those things during her rule, and that's the reason why, but families have only one member of each left after my mother thought they were up to something. It's a shame that she just didn't kill off the bloodline when she had the chance, Hinako said. Both factions are nothing more than a shadow of what they were after my mother had a go at them, and both of them want to regain the power that they lost, Carline said. And a beast that tasted power and then lose it, is always much more deadly than it was before, Hinako said. Elsewhere in Metal. In one of the inns of Ironmount, two women shared a bed together, laying side by side to each other. The one on the right is a tall willowy blonde and the other a bit taller dark-haired woman with tainted green skin. They have been companions and lovers ever since they chose their way of life, living on the edge, always looking over their shoulders. The dance chase is already starting, CJ said to Shago. Yes it is, she answers. Shouldn't we be there? CJ asked. No, Shago said. Still waiting for the right time, she asked. The Praetorian Guard are there and would be too troublesome to try, Shago explains. And then there's Mihawk and Sephiroth, the two strongest sword fighters in the known world there, CJ adds. There's no way we'll be able to take both of them at the same time, Shago said. And then there's the prince. He's strong, very strong. Together we might be able to kill him, CJ said. If we can get to him, that is. We're also getting some help from the Dead Men gang, Shago said. Those DRG users. We're getting help from them. Who are they sending? CJ asked, knowing well who those people are. The Dead Men are a bunch of men and women, mostly young, who live for nothing more than getting high. They believe in nothing, only living from one high to another. One of a trio of enforcers, the Dead Men Triad. Their bodies are warped by years of combat DRG abuse, so much so that they don't even feel any pain anymore. They long forgotten their original names and only answers to either 1, 2 or 3, Shago answered. A bunch of high DRG heads, CJ said. I truly hate that man, Shago said. So do I, her lover agreed. At school. The hallways of the school rumbled with the sounds of hundreds of feet racing through them. The boys had a head start on the girls and were either running or hiding somewhere on the school grounds. But all of the girls had one target in mind, even the older girls in the higher grades, which many called the reverse Hikaru Genji project. It was common for some older women to take younger men as their husbands in metal, given how there aren't that many men in the country. Even with the engagement with many young girls around the prince's age didn't stop the other girls from trying to score points with Naruto. They also had their sights on the Leaf girls, even with the rules preventing them from punching or kicking, but they could still tackle them. But they didn't count on one thing. What are you girls waiting for? Hinako asks as she looks back at her group as she holds a mass of schoolgirls back as she uses her body as a shield in a small doorway of the exit of the building. Are you sure you can handle this? Ino asks as she stares at a girl a bit older than herself holding back at least 50 other students back by sheer brute force. Hinako was the only thing keeping the other students from getting out. Sure, no problem, Hinako said. Just find the prince before someone else does. Right, Sakura said as she and the other girls ran off to find Naruto. In the foreground, two rivals watch as a single girl held off so many. I have heard of the strength of the Neanderthals, but this is the first time I have ever seen one, Mihawk said to Sephiroth. Yes, they're much stronger than a human, Sephiroth said. In our family tree of apes and monkeys, we humans are the bottom of the barrel when it comes to body strength given our body mass and size. And where do Neanderthals rank? Mihawk asked. They're the fourth strongest, with the gorilla, Bigfoot and Yetis in that order being stronger. Are any of them sword users? Mihawk asked. No, they have no taste for sword fighting. They use axes instead, as unlike a sword when not in battle an axe can be used as a tool. Which is lucky for us, Sephiroth said. When we deadlock our swords, I don't have to worry about you kicking my ribcage in, Mihawk said, watching as the young half-Neanderthal was pushing the horde of schoolgirls back into the building. Also of your sword smashing its way through mine. Both of our swords are able to cut through each other, but both of us aren't strong enough to do that, Sephiroth said. Not to mention that it cost less to make an axe compared to the cost of a sword. And that at the end of the day an axe can be used as a tool when a sword can only be used as a weapon. A sword is just a one-trick pony while an axe is a jack of all trades, a new voice said. Geskogni, nice to see you, Sephiroth greeted his fellow captain. She stood 2 heads taller than Sephiroth. Her skin is dusty colored, and thanks to her mixed bloodline, her body is a sight to behold, as she is built like a supermodel and a weightlifter combined, a lot of her upper body strength. Her arms and legs showed large, firm muscles along with a muscular body that did not slow her down thanks to her ninja training. She is also the captain of the axe unit of the Praetorians Guard and the best axe fighter in metal. The axe she carries a long axe that's combined with a hammer, one side had an axe blade and the other a hammer. I heard of you, Mihawk said. The best axe fighter of metal. That's right, only a Neanderthal is better at using an axe than me, Geskogni said. But then again, that's the reason why they don't like using swords, as it's only a weapon. Really? Sephiroth asked. Sure, an axe is a tool that can be used as a weapon, hunting and chopping wood, Geskogni said. And axes last a lot longer than a sword. How long before a sword gets dull or needs to be reforged, while an axe can still be used even when its blade has dulled with use? She does have a point there, Mihawk said, as he has his sword break in battle before and needed to be reforged. He always has the metal of his sword melted down to be cast into his new one, so a bit of his old swords would live on in his new one. And the upkeep is timely as well, Sephiroth adds. A sword has always been a prestigious weapon. It has been a symbol of rank because there's something special about a sword. It's designed only for warfare, whereas a spear, or a bow can be used for hunting, and the axe can be used as a tool. The sword is one of the few weapons designed purely to kill. Anyone who owned a sword had demonstrated that they had the money to spend on a weapon that had no real secondary function. While not a utility weapon, it was a very efficient combat weapon. The very fact that you had to draw one meant that you were already in close combat, not an ideal situation, so it needed to have been forged and shaped to the highest possible standard, and well cared for. If your sword failed you for any reason during this stage of combat, you would be dead. For this reason, a warrior treated their sword with the same love and respect that they showed to one of their family. Even with the very best of care, a blade would still become marked, so no matter how well it was cared for and kept oiled, little spots of hard black corrosion would appear, a form of rust but harder to get out. So over time you would get patches of slight pitting and little grayed areas where this rusting had started. Despite being cleaned, it would still be there, like a shadow in the metal. And these areas would keep growing. A blade could be completely covered with gray areas even while being looked after. If the warrior was involved in battle for an extended period, they might not be able to look after their blade as they should, so it would succumb to rusting, and if the rain got into their scabbard, this might actually produce whole patches of rust on the blade. No doubt these would be cleaned off when possible, but they would still start to chew in. Another enemy of the sword is blood, which was very bad for the blade because it contains iron. If you had dried blood on your blade and then a little moisture got into it, it would start to rust very quickly. They would have to clean any blood off your sword away right if you wished to protect the metal. And that harder type of black rust would have been cutting into the blade anyway, so it was a constant battle against a most difficult enemy. There was the same problem with steel hilt fittings. The blade would spend most of its life protected by the scabbard, which might have oil in it, but the hilt fittings would be knocked and scratched and exposed to the elements, leaving them constantly open to attack from rust. The scabbards also needed to fit the sword it held, and also it mustn't have any metal inside it as it would dull the blade down. The other major threat to a sword was the physical damage that it suffered when it was drawn and used in battle. Every time the metal blade was brought down upon a hard surface, whether metal armor or shield, or even bone, tiny dents and chips would very likely appear in the sharp yet narrow blade edge. Similarly, if two swords came into contact, they would not, as it is commonly thought, slide smoothly over each other but instead snag, creating further jagged edges that had to be beveled out with a whetstone, gradually reducing the width, strength and ultimately the effectiveness of the blade. Then the warrior would have to return to the blacksmith and the whole process of making a sword would begin again. "I see that my sister's girl is giving those girls trouble," Gascogni said, smiling as she watches Hinako beat back the girls as they try to push their way through her or wiggle. "But she's her father's girl when it comes to brute power." "I'm guessing that her father is much stronger than she is," Mihawk said. "Yup, much stronger, also like the rest of his kind are able to take more punishment than we can," Gascogni said, smiling as she sees that the schoolgirls finally gotten the idea that maybe trying to overpower Hinako wasn't the brightest of ideas. They were now pouring out of the windows and other doors. "Maybe it's a good idea to add to the killer bees," Sephiroth said as Hinako, seeing it was now pointless, let the girls still pushing themselves against her go and ending with them falling on their faces. In another part of the school, Farah, Princess of Gem, lead her group as they search for Naruto after they searched the school building. Pedudu was flying high in the sky looking for the prince thanks to her fish cape thing, like other girls who could fly in the air thanks to their winged shirts. They were also on the lookout for the Leaf group, but after seeing the sheer power of Hinako, none of them wanted to try to get them while she's around, as she had ran off to rejoin them after she stopped blocking the doorway. "Did anyone see where the prince went off to?" Farah asked as she stopped for a quick breather. "He went off to the east side of the school," Zara said, her face still in her book. "Wait a minute," Tayuya spoke up. "I remember that Neanderthals have a better sense of smell, right?" "Yeah, we had that on our test," Kin responds. "Since Hinako is half Neanderthal, she has a good sense of smell. So if we follow her, she'll lead us to Naruto," Tayuya said. "Good plan," Farah said, taking off again looking for the Leaf group. At another place, Temari and Amelia lead their group as they hopped on the roofs of the buildings. Which was quite the sight, as most of the girls were dressed like Amelia and some of the soldiers, and Delmo blinked as they saw them jumping along the roofs. It was something right out of a hero manga or anime. Does anyone know where we're going? Momoko asked. No, but from up here we have a better chance of spotting the prince up here, Amelia answers. So no real plan then, Miyako said. What you think that something is just going to pop up leading us to the prince? Kaoru asked. It works in the mangas, Amelia responds. This isn't a manga, Will said. No point in telling her that, Temari said, knowing too well what Amelia is like. Let's just ask Lin if she's seen anything. Irma said, pointing to her friend up in the air. I see the Gem Princess group heading for the indoor pool, Lin said. They know something that we don't, Terane said. We should follow and see, Cornelia said. The pool has a skylight. And we shall drop down upon them as any good heroes would do. Amelia said with stars in her eyes, which caused all but her new fellow costume-wearing friends to sweat drop. In another room. Mai scanned the schoolyard as other groups of girls reached for the missing prince. The soldiers and Delmos were keeping a close eye on all of the girls, making sure that no fighting would go too far or anyone cheating. They already caught some girls cheating already by using jutsus to fool the other girls and breaking up fights. Many of the free boys were already taken, but most of the girl groups had their eyes set on dancing with the prince. You got the scent? Mai asked Ty Lee. Yes, the strawberry scent I place on one of the killer bees is coming strong, Ty Lee said, sniffing the air. She just loved strawberries and could smell them a mile away. Good, lead the way. Sekhmet said. Before any of the other girls get to the prince first, Kasumi said. The scent leads to the indoor pool, Ty Lee pointing towards the building. But isn't the pool close for cleaning? I am asked. Because someone peed in the pool, Himiko adds. How did you think I felt when I found that out, Cercilia said, who was in the pool at the time. I never seen someone jump out of water so high before, Iresh said. Let's sneak through the back, Mai said, running off for the back door of the indoor pool with her group behind her. In the indoor pool building, Naruto and the killer bees along with his personal maids waited in the large indoor pool. The pool was drained of water since someone peed in the pool, which caused many of the students who were swimming take long showers to wash it off. He waited to see if any of the groups would find him, if not he would just dance with the killer bees and his maids. Currently he was eating a bowl of rama from the stand that Ayam had set up once she was let out of class, as she didn't care whether or not that the Leaf Village was saved or not. This is good, Kokliko said, eating a bowl herself. Naruto, you know that your grandparents don't want you to eat rama all of the time, Setsuna said as she and a number of Delmos and soldiers stood inside the building along with soldiers outside. Ayam and her father are the only happy memories I have, Naruto said flatly. You still have plenty of time to make new ones, Gemini said hopefully. They're coming, Santamo said as her pet monkey gave her a warning. Coming through the double doors of the entrance of the pool were the Leaf Group. Naruto, Sakura said as she looks across the empty pool towards her former classmate. This is surprising, Naruto said. How did you find me? I'm half Neanderthal and I have my dad's nose, Hinako said, poking her nose. Which is why we followed you here, Farah said as she and her group came through another set of doors. Hold it right there. Amelia shouted as she and her group dropped down from the roof from a ladder door that goes up to the roof. Since they couldn't just break through the glass as Amelia wanted. Don't forget us, Mai said as she and her group came through the back door. Well, 4 groups found me, Naruto said. Lock the doors. What? Setsuna asked. There are 4 groups who want to catch me here and only 1 group can dance with me. So they're just going to have to fight till there's only 1 group left, Naruto explains. This is bad, Tenten said as the other 3 groups all look at them with a glint in their eyes. Zania, the head of the school, watched as the students ran around trying to find the boys for the big dance. But she knew that the main target for most of the girls would be the prince. She looked at her watch as the school became a bed of chaos and only 5 minchus had passed. But of course this was nothing compared to what it was like before the new rules were placed to aviate students getting hurt or the school getting damaged. This sure brings back memories, Suzanne, the head of the language department, said, standing by her friend, Susan, head of the chemistry department. Remember when we did this, Susan said. And how you two along with Kiko almost destroyed the gym, Xenia inputted, causing the two women to blush. Do you know where the prince went? A redhead girl asked. Xenia looked down as recognized the girl as Strawberry Shortcake, as she always wears a hat with strawberries on them. She is a bright and energetic girl who is known around the school to be friendly, as she has lots of friends. Many of Strawberry Shortcake's days are spent in the simple pleasures of tending the berry vines of her mother's farm. Strawberry is always cheerful and is ready for helping her friends at any time, which is why everyone likes her. And if she grows anything like her mother, which Xenia knew quite well in school, once she reaches that age she'll never have to go far for a bedmate, which would come from her group of close friends that are with her. Ginger Snap, an expert inventor, and purveyor of every known kind of cookie. Her family's massive gingerbread factory in Cookie Corners combines these two interests neatly. Which had stood as far back as anyone could remember and well known for their cookies. Orange Blossom, whose family manages the Orange Blossom Acres. She and Strawberry have been friends since they were little. Her family is well known for their plant jutsus, which they use to help their crops grow. Angel Cake possesses a tremendous talent for cake decoration, which helps her in her mother's cake shop. She loves to bake and serves her friends with what she makes. However, she is also known to be a perfectionist and can become rather ill-tempered if things don't go her way. Peppermint Fizz is an argumentative, troublemaking brat. Conniving, manipulative and greedy, she epitomizes every bad quality that a child might possess. But still, Strawberry Shortcake sees whatever good might lurk beneath the sour surface, and does her best to cultivate goodness in her. Rainbow Sherbet is a wild seafaring girl always looking for some fun. She is captain of the Rainbow Float, an ornate paddle boat on the Punch Bowl Lake. Her family runs a fish farm on the lake and shipping trade goods. Coco Calypso is good friends with Strawberry Shortcake and her pals, but she lives with her parents on Seaberry Shore, a appealing tropical bee far removed from her friends. But with her parents sending her to the school, she now has lots of time to be with her friends. Seaberry Delight lives in A with her parents in a cottage in a not well-known grotto off of Seaberry Shore. A fantastic swimmer, Seaberry loves the water so much, she was mistaken for a mermaid when Strawberry and her friends first saw her. Like Coco, she moved to Ironmount when her parents enroll her into the school. Blueberry Muffin, a book-loving dramatist, who lives in a muffin-shaped cottage in Blueberry Valley, which her mother designed to go with the family-run the Blueberry Farm. Tea Blossom, her home is in the Plum Blossom province of Eastern Metal. Her family runs a tea shop, which is why she loves to drink tea. Crepes Suzette, her mother operates a chic boutique in the heart of Ironmount. Tangerina Torta, her family lives in the Tangerine Bosque, a lush tropical rainforest in southwestern Metal. When she was enrolled into the school, she became friends with Strawberry and her other firens. Raspberry Tort can be brash and thoughtless, but is still good friends with Strawberry and her other friends. She is generally seen as the athletic of the group and a fitness fanatic. Lemon Meringue is all about style and glamour, which she tries to get her friends to keep up. Her mother runs a beauty salon which her friends go to all the time. Plum Puddin, a brainy character, she's also a bit of a walking disaster. Her friends come to her for help with their homework and help her in return when she breaks something. Banana Candy, her former vigor and energy when she was little have translated into workaholism. She's always doing a side job whenever she's out of school. Lime Chiffon, a bubbly and flighty ballerina always dancing and spinning to and fro. She just loves to dance and the one who's pushing her friends into getting into a group and dance with the prince. Sorry, but we can't help, Susan said. Told you that they wouldn't help, Peppermint said. Well, it was worth a shot, Orange said. But we still don't have a clue of where the prince is, Ginger said. He must be someplace, Plum said, thinking. Maybe inside a building, Lemon said. What buildings are close? Suzette asked. The swimming pool, Seaberry said, as the pool was closed down till it was clean up from the pee. Yeah, look there, Susanna said. Let's go, Strawberry said, waving her friends to follow as she leads the way. This is so much like when we were kids, Susan said. Expect for a few add-ons to the group. They're all like their mothers when they went here, Xania said, remembering when most of those girls' mothers were her schoolmates. Yeah, but then it wouldn't be much fun without a shortcake in the school, Susan said, as there always been a shortcake in the school ever since the school first started. At the pool. Hinako let out a war cry as she tossed one girl after another off of her as she single-handedly fights off most of the girls of the other groups that are with hers in the indoor pool. The girls of the three groups dog-piled on her, but she proved that her strength was more than a match for their numbers. Tai Li rushed in and strike at Hinako's pressure points, but to her surprise it didn't work and she got thrown into the wall for her trouble. That should have worked, Tai Li said, shaking it off. Neanderthal's energy points are not the same as ours, Setsuna told her. That means my attacks won't work then? Tai Li asked. Nope, Setsuna said. You have better luck fighting the other girls of the group. Sakura and Chio hid behind Toph and Hinata as they fought off the girls of the other groups. Toph proved to be able to sense her surroundings, allowing her to duck and block the attacks against her, and Hinata made use of her family style but found herself pushed to her limits by the metal girls who didn't have to worry about using all of their chakra. The older Sakura, Ino and Tenten were barely defending themselves as they fought off the girls that targeted them. They were getting beaten badly as, unlike Hinako, they didn't have the power to back up their skills, which the other girls had plenty of. You leaf neens are just too weak, Himiko said as she punches Ino's face, sending her falling backwards. Why brother fighting? Kaoru asked as she grapples with Tenten and winning. As long as there's hope we'll never back down, Sakura said. Hope, Zera said, who had sat down on a seat reading her book. How can there be hope when Naruto clearly doesn't want anything to do with the leaf anymore? She's right, you know, Kin smirked at Sakura. You would know that, but then again, whenever one of you leaf girls even tries to talk to him, he just gets up and leaves. How can you even think that there's hope when we're ahead of you in the race that you leaf girls started way behind the start? The only reason why you all are trying to become friends with me is because I'm the Prince of Metal, Naruto spoke up. You all had the chance of getting to know me before, but you all let your parents' views judge me. Why should I give any of you a chance when I never had a chance to make any friends in the village? You're right about that. We all had that chance of being your friends, Sakura said as Ayam had hammered that fact into everyone's heads. What about Ayam and Hinata? Ayam is my only friend I had in the village, but she has no love for the village. And as for Hinata, I really don't know her, Naruto said, causing Hinata to give out an eep. That means that you girls have no chance of winning when none of you even knows him when you all had years to get to know him, Taiyuya said. While we have no bad history with him, just a blank page to build from, Farah said. Got it. Chio shouted as she grabs Naruto's name tag and took off running with the younger Sakura alongside with her. Not so fast, Kin shouted as she and a few other girls loomed over the two smaller girls. Hold it right there, a very large red Delmo said as she slams her spear between the older girls and the younger ones. What the world are you thinking? Well, Kin began to say as she and the other girls backed away from the older and stronger woman wearing armor, holding a spear. Who was joined by other Delmos and guards. We don't mind you beating up the older girls, one of the guards said. But if you even think of hurting those two girls who are younger and weaker than you all, is where we draw the line, a red Delmo said. Hurt them and we're going to hurt you all badly, the lead Delmo said, glaring at the younger girls. Right, Kin said as she and the other girls took off. Thanks. Chio said to the older women as she opens the exit door. Only to see a big group of girls standing in front of her. Hey, thanks. Peppermint smiled as she grabs the name tag out of Chio's hands and closes the door before she could react. What just happened? Sakura asked, blinking. Wasn't that Strawberry and her friends? Glycin asked. Yup, Amelia said as she has a cooking class with Strawberry. That's her and her snack gang. After them. Mai shouted as she ran out the door, causing Chio and Sakura to spin around as she passes them, which continued as the other girls quickly followed. "I think we should leave it to the others," Sakura said as her eyes became spinning circles. "Yeah," Chio agreed as the room wouldn't stop spinning. In the Leaf Village. Bodies of Leaf Nins lay broken on the battle-worn streets. The Umbu Nins that tried to stop the monster were easily defeated, their broken bodies would take weeks or months to heal, which would drain the village on supplies to care for them. For none of the Nins were killed, because the one who did the deed wanted people to see what he did. To break their spirits, seeing the best the village could throw at him meant nothing compared to him. Real fighting isn't about killing or even hurting the other guy, it's about scaring them enough to call it a day. Enko screamed as her arm was snapped in two before being slammed head first into the ground. Ibiki with BLD running down his face came rushing at his foe, a powerful strike from the backside of a meat cleaver sent him falling to the ground. The man looked all around him to see that he was the only one left standing, as all of the Nins that came to fight him now laid at his feet broken. The bodies twisted and weapons broken covered the ground. Kakashi was in a tangle of bodies along with his rival. They along with the other bodies in the pile tried to gang up on him, but he proved that he's too strong for that. The biggest pervert of the element countries was embedded into a wall. "Butcher, why show yourself after all of this time?" the Hokage said as he sat against a wall holding his broken ribcage. He stared at the big, burly man, dressed in a green color leather vest and green pants, which he remembered well as he always wore the same outfit. No one knows what he looks like as he wore a gas mask covering his face, and carried a number of blades on him at all times. "To see how weak, I have become weaker after years of not fighting Nins," Butcher said. "Once, I heard that the son of my rival is the heir of metal, I decided to open shop once more. And after getting back into shape, I decide to test myself against you Leaf Nins to see where I stand." "You're going to fight, Naruto?" The Hokage's eyes widen. "For as long as I remember, I have been the strongest of the element countries. Even at my old age, I'm still able to beat the strongest village which you saw firsthand. For that reason the only ones that I can test myself against are the fighters from the western lands," Butcher said. "Minato and his wife were the only ones who could fight me when I went all out. Their son should be stronger as he should have gotten all of his parents' strengths. It's too bad that this village couldn't have seen it, but then again this village isn't as it used to be." "You're crazy," the Hokage said. "The Delmo will tear you apart if you try to attack Naruto. Where you see the impossible, all I see is a mountain that no one has ever tried climbing," Butcher stated as he walks out of the village heading west. Hunrock Delmo, husband to Carline the Queen of Metal, sat in one of the small meeting rooms of the palace with Sang Rockis the command of the Turks. "He finally shown himself again," Hunrock said, putting down the report he was given by Sang. "The report came in a short while ago from a metal trader, the news stations would also be on the scene soon enough. The Butcher has defeated most of the Leaf Nins, leaving the best that the village had broken. They all have broken bones and some will never be able to fight again. The strange thing is that from the old reports on him he usually kills, not just crippling THM, Sang said. There's more than one way of breaking a foe, you know, Hunrock said. Seeing the best of their village laying in beds in a body cast will do wonders for their morale. And those who saw him fight, will be shaken to their cores. I have seen him fight before, his style which he created himself is a ferocity that's both graceful and vicious. Butcher, from the reports that are coming in, he wanted to see how weak he had become after resting his blades after the death of your son-in-law, Sang said. And since no one knows where he came from or what he looks like, trying to stop him at the border will be all but impossible. He'll show himself when he wants to and we'll only find him when he lets us. That's why he's the strongest of the eastern lands, and now learning that Naruto is his rival's son wants to test his strength against the western lands, Hunrock said. But I do know something about his past. He's from the former empire of Solenden, the land without heroes. He's from there. Sang said, his eyes narrowing as he knows about that land and its people. Yes, he was before the empire fell, that is, Hunrock said. I tell you what I know from the bits and pieces that I have managed to piece together. There is a tale told in the empire of Solenden, when it was still at war with a powerful dark enemy called Wishtek, the Emperor sent 14 champions to stop the onslaught, though not all would complete the journey. Throughout their excursion, 3 of the champions died and 4 turned on their comrades. The 7 heroic men who remained, defeated and punished the traitors and accomplished their mission, stopping the enemy's army from reaching the empire. The 7 men returned home lauded as saviors, and were awarded the title of the 7 Heroes, while the traitors' names were forever shamed and referred to as the Lances of Betrayal. This story was simply a fable. The 7 heroes, in the story, were cowards who fled upon seeing the enemy force. The Lances of Betrayal were those who bravely pushed on to complete their mission. However, upon making their way home, they were ambushed and slaughtered by the cravenly deserters to take from them the honor and glory of achieving the quest. Unbeknownst to the treacherous group, however, one survived. His name was Ascarite. 5 years later the Empire faced another enemy force from the Kingdom of Gaze looking to expand its borders. During that time when the call for the 7 heroes to take arms again was when Ascarite struck. One by one he killed off the so-called heroes who grew corrupt with the power they gained from their lies. In the end their lies came to light along with their corruption had caused from using bodies of bloodline holders to strengthen their bodies to taking what they wanted. The Emperor asked Ascarite to lead the army to fight against the army of Gaze, as he and his 3 friends were the real heroes and he was the only one left who could raise the morale of the army. Once it was revealed that they'd been following and calling the traitors as heroes, which he agreed to. When the 2 armies met to open combat, was when Ascarite did the one thing none had expected. He threw down his sword and walked towards the enemy soldiers. I fought to save this land once before only to be turned on by those who ran away. My name along with the other 3 I fought with known across this land as betrayers. The only reason why I now being hailed as a hero is not because I reveal the 7 as what they were, but only because they need me to save them once again. I'm not going to save this land again, seeing what the people I fought for are like, calling anyone who say that they did something without anything but their own words. Those of you who want to become heroes, all you need to do is to kill the one who are and say that you did what they did, and the people of this land will buy it as they did with the 7 that I killed. With those words he left the field of battle as the enemy forces let him pass through their ranks, then launched their attack on the now moral shaken Solendan army. They did manage to drive the invaders out, but only after a long 10-year bloody war that left much of the former empire a wasteland. The reason why was because after the words for Ascarite spread through the land, the soldiers fighting had no will to stand up and lead a charge for fear of being backstabbed. The commanders of the army began fighting among themselves as they all thought that the others once they won a battle would kill them and take their glory. Which is why the empire fell apart into ever-shifting factions and why the land doesn't have any heroes, as all fear that someone will just kill them and name themselves as a hero. And that was just around 40 years ago, just around the age that we think Butcher is, Sang said, seeing where his king was getting at. I heard that tale firsthand from a man with his face covered with bandages saying he came from Ascarite escaping the war there just before I met Carline, Hunrock said. You think that Butcher is Ascarite? Sang asked. Maybe or maybe not, Hunrock said. All I know is that to make someone like Butcher is, something needs to happen to make someone into someone like he is. At least the leaf has been broken. With so many leaf means crippled, the remaining means will be hard-pressed to keep up with what missions are coming in. The drain from caring for the crippled means should also weaken them, Sang said. Which will make things much easier once Naruto takes his revenge on the village, Hunrock said. Also, are you sure that the Butcher is the Butcher? You could potentially find someone of Butcher's height, and train the imposter to imitate Butcher's voice and speech patterns. But you can't counterfeit a fighting style. Not to the extent that you could imitate it perfectly in a real fight, Sang said. The report says that the Leaf Neens who had fought Butcher before all say that while he isn't as fast or strong as he used to be, the fighting style is the same. Hunrock nodded. A fighting style had to be ingrained at the reflexive level to be of any use in a serious fight, as fights often progressed too quickly for the people involved to consciously think about what they needed to do. Because of that, they were as individualistic as fingerprints. There is also another thing, Sang said. Yes, what is it? Hunrock asked. The world government is sending a ship to meet Naruto and hope to make metal a part of their political organization, Sang said. They always do that when there's a new heir of metal, Hunrock said, remembering the last time the Marines came in the hopes of making metal a part of the world government. Ever since Kaline's great-grandmother had summoned Hardstone to destroy their HQ when they tried to liberate metal during the war. What was left of the world government have been trying to rebuild themselves back up. With how badly their forces were destroyed and the absolute justice the Marines followed at the time, many of the countries that were with them left. I'm surprised how they managed to last this long. They're sending a Captain Smoker here with his crew here to meet with Naruto, Sang said. Remember what the report said about the man. Smoker is a muscular bluish gray-haired man. He has a very distinct trait of always being seen smoking 2 cigars at once, as well as having many cigars on hand strapped to his jacket, which has the kanji for justice written on the back. Only a captain this time? Hunrock asked. In the Grand Ocean there has been a rise in pirates after Gold. Rogers the Pirate King started the great age of piracy after his execution. There is also the actions of Revolutionary Dragon, who is trying to topple the government as well. All the other high-ranking officers are busy dealing with the problems boiling up to come to metal, Sang answered. So true, but with all the evil that they have done in the past, it's about time that they fall, Hunrock said. I agree with that, a 6-foot young woman of 28 years said as she enters into the room. She has a muscular physique that did not cost her femininity. She was still slender and quite attractive but lacked the smoldering SEC appeal and massive cup size that women like many of the women of metal possessed. She had short brown hair cut in a page boy's style. The only odd thing about her was the cold, stern, and disciplined look in her eyes. She was dressed in blue jeans that showed off every curve on her shapely legs and right up her soft rear, and a blue business shirt that clung to everything. Sam, when did you got back? Sang asked. I finished the mission early, so I came back. I do need to meet the prince after all, Sam said. Good. You can be the one he fights when he trains, Hunrock said. Isn't that a bit much? Sang asked. Sam is the strongest warrior alive right now. No, she isn't. Hunrock said. Really, who's stronger than me? Sam asked her king. Gono is, Hunrock answers. Yeah, that's true, Sang said. Well, he is a Neanderthal, Sam said, as no matter how hard she trains, she can only take it so far. Neanderthals on the other hand were already stronger than a human without training. A warrior Neanderthal, while a very rare sight to see given their peaceful ways, are the most feared of foes on the battlefield. With the most advanced tech and alloys at hand, a Neanderthal warrior could create weapons and armor that could stand up to just about anything. Gono did that with armor and an axe that couldn't be affected by chakra of any kind and are all but unbreakable. He, as with all others of his kind, can't be affected by mind trick jutsus, which she had to admit some of those foes she had fought almost had her a couple of times using mind tricks on her. She really would like to be able to see past all of that and see her real target. Also, Butcher is back and is heading to metal, Hunrock said. Butcher? He's still alive? Sam asked. She had heard about him before, but she was just a small girl when he had hanged up his blades. He wants to test himself against my grandson, Hunrock said. He went and single-handedly defeated the Leaf Village. Don't worry, we can take him, Sam said. The Leaf is strong, but only by the Eastern country's standards. Don't forget, Sam, that our king came from the East, Sang said. Even at my age, I'm still good enough to give even someone at your level a hard time, Hunrock said. Butcher on the other hand is just a plain killer. Killer? Sam asked. You are a trained warrior, but Butcher on the other hand is just a plain killer. Where you hold back he doesn't, where you avoid bystanders being caught in the crossfire he doesn't. He doesn't care who he has to kill to finish a mission, he just kills. If he has to kill hundreds just to make sure that one person dies, he does and has before, Hunrock said. I'll inform the others about Butcher, Sang said. But even he would think twice before taking on fighters who are at a much higher level than what he's used to fighting. You would think so, Hunrock said. The school. The office door swung open from the inside and out stepped a very appealing, very busty, school vice principal. Evelyn wore her blonde hair up in a bun. She also wore a pair of the thickest lensed glasses Xenia had ever seen. But with the body that stood holding up her beautifully polished face, she could have passed for a cover of one of those Thai books written by that Leaf Neen. Big would have been an understatement. Her white blouse struggled to retain itself as it was stretched across her massive bust. The blouse had many buttons, however, none of them could be buttoned. If that blouse was buttoned, it was beyond anyone's vision. Or perhaps they were simply hiding behind the bottom of her dark green jacket, which she wore to compensate for the blouse which wouldn't button up. The jacket itself seemed to be in the same boat as the blouse. Only 3 of her jacket's buttons could be done, all of which were well under her bust line. The buttons stopped at her waist, where an equally dark skirt began to hug her curvy peach. Yes, what is it, Evelyn? Xenia asked, having just returned from the schoolyard. Strawberry and her friends have the prince's name tag and are heading for the main building to try to lose the other girls after them, she answers. They're also getting the attention of everyone else who are after the prince as well. And since the prince gave the okay to fight over him, it's going to be an all-out war zone. Better give heads up to the guards, Xenia sighed, as things always break during these kinds of a chase. I'll say, said Momo, head of the tech lab of the school. Wearing a loose heavy blue robes, loose white pants, leather gloves, boots, making sure that no skin showed but her face. The omnipresent scholar's cap with 2 long red braids that hung down to the ground, a pair of small glasses that sat on her nose completed her look. She, unlike many women of metal, didn't like showing off her body. Because of her loose-fitting clothes, it's hard for others to judge what kind of body she is hiding underneath. I already taken the lead and have the labs locked down. I'm not going to have the lab be wrecked by rampaging students looking for a boy to dance with again. A loud crash was heard somewhere in the building, followed by many more. Too late, Evelyn deadpanned as students began battling each other for the prince's name tag. Across the street. A pub, which is where many Delmos stop by, the pub was known for its fine food and cozy atmosphere. It was open all hours, and there were usually a couple of regular customers hanging around in the lobby, ready to bend the ears of visitors from other parts of the land. It was a good place to meet people and hear the latest city gossip. People were elbow to elbow at the table, laughing and swigging back various colored beverages or stuffing their faces with food. All right, are all the bets been counted? Kim Possible asked to her 3 crew members with her at a table. She and the rest of her crew were grounded until the ship was tuned up and restocked. It's all been counted, Allison said. Whoever wins will get a big payday, Elizabeth adds. With so many teams after the prince, it's tough to pick which team will win, Kelly said. Which team is the one everyone thinks is going to win? It depends who's betting. Most are betting on the girls from their homelands to win, Allison said. I wonder if the school is going to be a mess again? Kim asked. Well, there are those new rules set in place to stop the girls from causing too much trouble, Kelly said as a loud boom could be heard from the nearby school. So much for that, Elizabeth said, looking across the street as more booms and crashes could be heard coming from the school building. Out at sea. Make sail. With the command, the captain of a wooden sailing warship started a bustle of activity. In seconds, hundreds of sailors climbed high above the rolling deck. In minutes, they unfurled huge sails to HRNSS the power of the wind. On board, the ship carried everything the crew of about 800 needed for a voyage halfway around the world. The sea were the main trade routes, so the country with the strongest navy ruled the world. That was until the invention of the airships that made trading faster for light trading goods, while the sea trade now deals with big and heavy trade goods. Life for the ordinary sailor on board a warship was very hard. They faced death from battle, accidents, and disease, and his floating home was damp, dark, and crowded. Tashiji Ensign, a marine officer serving under Captain Smoker. She's a skilled sword fighter but has poor eyesight and tends to drop things or knock something over. She's currently reading the file they have on the Metal Prince Naruto that the HQ put together. She still couldn't believe that she was going to meddle one of the superpowers of the world, with the money from the metal trade and the powerful army and means, made them a powerful country. They could afford the latest ships and airships, unlike with the world government as their ships are but for a few are out-of-date ships and only a half a dozen airships at the ready. Reading the ship's menu for today, Toshiji would have never guessed that the food was one of the attractions of joining the Navy. Meals included, rotting, stinking meat, biscuits riddled with maggots, cheese so tough that sailors carved it into buttons for their uniforms. The drink was just as bad. The fresh water soon turned to green slime, and the beer kept a little better. Meals tasted bad because it was very hard to keep food fresh. Voyages could last years, and there was almost no refrigeration on most of the Navy ships. The ship usually carried live animals for food, but their meat, milk, and eggs were mostly reserved for the officers. Meat for the seamen was stored in salt, which made it dry and very tough. The salt worked by locking up the water in the meat. The microorganisms that rot meat need water to live, so salt protected the meat from spoiling. Bread went stale or moldy, so instead the Navy issued hard biscuits made of flour and water. Despite all this, shipboard food was probably better than the food sailors enjoyed with their families at home. She wished that their ship could have a freezer so that she and the rest of the crew wouldn't have to eat hard biscuits, but money is tight all around. They shared their biscuits with rats, maggots, and weevils. They called the maggots bargemen, joking that the biscuits was the barge, and the maggot was sailing it. Rats were easy to identify, and you'd notice one if you bit into it. The other two were less noticeable. One sailor said, black-headed maggots were fat and cold to the taste, but not bitter, like weevils. At least with the new canned goods we're eating better than what sailors used to eat, Toshiji thought to herself as canning food only started about 10 years ago. Your first time to meddle? Smoker asked to his second. Yeah, it is, Toshiji answers. It be my 5th trip there, Smoker said. You do remember the rankings of the Delmos, right? Yes, Toshiji said as she began to list them out. The Black Delmos are the lowest ranking of the kunoichis but are the greatest in numbers, in charge of carrying out simple missions, mass attacking using hand-to-hand combat and the administration of the castle and surrounding city. All Delmos start as black before choosing whether they go up in rank or stay the same rank or just be non-neens, making many women in metal former Black Delmos. The Purple Delmos are trained in using churka to increase their speed, making them invisible to the naked eye. They serve as massagers between the towns of the country. The Yellow Delmos serve as the city guards, protecting the people. They are trained with body weights, making them very powerful in combat. The Pink Delmos are responsible for maintaining the equipments for missions. And they're the healers. The Green Delmos are specialized in using long-range throwing weapons and sneaking onto targets. The Blue Delmos are the middle-ranking kunoichis. They carry weapons and perform security duties such as defending the city and castle against intruders. The Orange Delmos are trained to be weapon experts who can hold all of their weapons on them using the hidden weapons jutsu, which uses a lot of churka to be used. The Red Delmos are the castle guard who are trained like the Yellows in making their bodies strong. But they wear body armor, making them the only ninjas who wear armor. The Silver Delmos are the hunter ninjas to recapture any runaway ninjas and are information gatherers. The Gold Delmos are the elites who specialize in S-ranked missions and black ops. And the White Delmos are the commanders and royal family personal bodyguards. They are responsible for the smooth operations of the kunoichi's forces and missions. Good, Smoker said. We can't have a mix-up like what happened with Princess Kiko. Yeah, Toshiji said, remembering what she heard about the officer who mistook a White Delmo as a lower-ranking Delmo. So what does the people of metal think of us? Little much, which is much better than what they thought of us before, Smoker said. They remember too well what the world government was like when the Tenryubitos were still around. But that was over 100 years ago, Toshiji said. Yes, but one of the Grand Generals of Metal was alive at that time and she always voiced against us to the Queen, Smoker said. Hinako the fire general, Toshiji said, remember from the file they have on people of metal of interest. She remembers too well what the government was like when the Tenryubitos were around. Those were the people who are allowed to live in the holy land of Maryajoa, as they were the descendants of the 20 kings who established the world government. However, due to their connection to the world government, they constantly abused their power and looked down on the people below them, referring to them as commoners. They're disconnected to the point that they wear glass helmets over their heads to prevent from even breathing the air of the common people. The Tenryubito have various rights and privileges not held by many other people in the world. In particular, they are able to buy people, who have been captured and put into slavery, and their actions are overlooked by the world government. Which was the reason why when the sister of the Queen of Metal of that time was sold into slavery and was killed by the person who brought her, started the war between Metal and the world government, Smoker explains. Even so, all of the Tenryubitos had been killed during the war and the riots that happened after the war, Toshiji said. We're not like what we used to be. Expect that there are still people in the government who still follow to the letter absolute justice, Smoker said. Because of that, and that we still trade in slaves, is the reason why Metal doesn't want anything to do with us. Then why are we going there? Toshiji asked. Since there's a new heir to Metal, there's some hope that we'll be able to make good relationships with Metal through the heir, Smoker said. And since it's the first time that there's a male Delmo, we need to see how powerful he is. Didn't the countries that are connected to us send girls for the engagement? Toshiji asked. Yeah, but since the prince's grandmother the queen is making the cuts who stays in the engagement, she will already know what we're up to, Smoker said, as Fleet Admiral Sengoku hopes to have someone friendly to the government through that. Will we see some Neanderthals? She asked, never having seen a member of the branch of the family tree before. In Metal there is a close tie between the Neanderthals. As you know, they're dedicated hunter-gatherers, and have no developed concept of agriculture. Despite this, they are still technologically advanced, possessing computers, airships, communications and biological recording instruments, which is where the rest of us had gotten the tech stuff from, Smoker said. Oh yeah, remind all the crew not to talk about religion when meeting a Neanderthal. Why? She asked. The Neanderthal have no religion and no concept of religion. This is not due to a simple disbelief or worldwide atheism. The Neanderthal never had a religion to begin with and never saw a reason why to ever have one. Prior to contact between humans and the Neanderthals, they had no concept of a creator, an afterlife or souls had never occurred to them. They do not understand how we humans can possibly believe in the stories our religions tell, and are sometimes frustrated with some of us' insistence of the truth of their beliefs. Nevertheless, the Bearists do accept religion as a part of who we humans are. They also do not believe that the universe had a beginning and do not adhere to the Big Bang theory. Instead, they believe the universe has always existed since, without religion to tell them there was someone who started everything, Smoker said. But religion is meant to save people, Toshiji said. Yeah, but only if they needed to be saved in the first place, Smoker said. How long will it take for us to get to Metal? Toshiji asked, wanting to talk about something else. Once we get to the outpost on an island off the coast of Rome, we'll leave the ship there and get drop off on the mainland. There we'll take the train to Metal, Smoker said. Which will take about 5 to 9 days depending on the sea from here to there, then only 4 days by train. I wonder what he's like. Toshiji said to herself, thinking of the prince. She had read and watched the news reports on what the prince's life was like when he was living in the Leaf Village. Back at the school. The front of the school's main doors flew open as a ragged form came out limping. For almost half an hour the school building had been a war zone as girls fought over the prized name tag of the prince. Each of them giving their all as they fought each other, as Naruto said that it was okay for them to fight it out. The Delmos and guards mostly stood by and watched the fight, only breaking it up when it got too far out of hand or when one of the girls tried to use a weapon. The hallways of the school were littered with the bodies of the young girls who fought over the name tag. The Delmos and guards were busy helping the girls to sick bay, or those who know how to use healing jutsus healed the girls. I got it, Ino smiled as she was the only one left still standing from her group. Hinako had stayed behind the group when Hinata and Toph were getting beaten by a large group of girls at the other side of the school when everyone was running and fighting, trying to find who has the name tag. She, Sakura and Tenten had gone ahead and after fighting all out, she gotten the name tag out of the pile of bodies. Somewhere among the fallen were Sakura and Tenten who had fallen during the battle. She had gotten lucky to have ended up underneath a pile of downed girls during the fight, and when she pulled herself out most of the fighting was already over with. "You need to step out of the gate to win," the redhead teacher Renko shouted out. "Right," Ino said as she walked over to the gate as fast as she could. She never made it as the form of a beaten my punched. The back of her head knocking her out. "I win," Mai smiled as she crossed the finish line. The number of girls hurt during the free-for-all is 168. The guards and Delmos stopped the students before they got hurt worse, thank goddess, Xania said as she reads the damage report to Queen Carline and the council. The school building is going to take a week to repair, not to mention the cost of replacing what was broken during the fight. The east wing is heavily damaged, the main hall likewise, and most of the classrooms are weak. Ever since I became head of the school things like this hasn't happened. The school shouldn't be a battleground. If it was good enough for me then it's good enough for those kids, Hinako said as she and the other grand generals sat in the room as well. Besides, I seem to remember you being the cause of the entire west side of the school building roof to be blow sky high. Well, Xania said blushing. That maybe, but the prince shouldn't have given the okay for the girls to fight over his name tag like that. That's the reason why those rules were made, to stop things like this from happening. My husband is going to talk to him about that, Carline said. Also, because of the state most of the girls are in, I'm going to have to push back the dance so the girls can recover, Xania said. Reminds me of the old days, Hinako said as the dance was almost never on the date it was supposed to be on. But of course we used weapons. I'll take my leave, Xania said, leaving the room. Well, that's a fine mess your grandson made, Zenobia said. But he is Kiko's son after all and takes after her. And, I wouldn't have it any other way, Sito said. On that subject, Zenobia said, looking at Carline. Naruto doesn't seem to care about others around him and only seem to use people. Naruto is still have to get used to people around him who care for him. It's an alien feeling for him, Carline defended. Me and my husband are doing everything we can to help him. Carline, be careful, Hinako said as she's one of the few people who never called her queen. All of this choosing what's best for him, will just backfire sooner or later. Children need to make their own choices and not depend on others to choose for them. Remember what happened to Kiko. I know that, Carline said as she has never forgave herself for driving Kiko away by choosing what she could and not do. But Naruto needs all the help I can give him. Maybe, maybe not, Hinako said softly. Elsewhere in Metal. Ironmount Marketplace is the most incredible shopping center of the world. Every day, ships and wagons arrive from all over the queendom, carrying trade goods made in distant corners of the world. Traders from all over brought back luxurious silks and spices to delight the wealthy buyers of Metal. But there are many affordable things buy, too. Whether you want shoes, pots, or clothes, you'll find exactly what you want in Metal. Most of the stores are stands or rooms opening out onto the street, with up to 60,000 traders and visitors each day. But even tough, it's bustling, it's well organized and divided into areas according to what's on sale, so it's easy to find your way around. Asuma walked down to the ramen shop that the others were at. The people around him avoided him and glared at him as he walked by, reminding him of how the village treated Naruto. Everyone knew who he is and where he's from and treated him the same as Naruto was treated, as they did with the rest of the Leaf Neens. Only Ayam and her father Ray avoided the fate, since Ayam made it well known that she is Naruto's only friend and won't stop him when he seeks his revenge. Once he got to Ray's ramen shop, he opens the door and found Sakura, Ino, Tenten, and Hinata being tended by Tsunade, Shizun, and Kurenai. All four of the girls were in bad shape. The medics of the school only healed so much before sending them home. Shikamaru, Kiba, and Chuji were seated at a table. I knew that it would turn out this way, Ayam said as she gives the three boys their meal. It was a local dish, grain boiled into porridge and mixed with eggs and cheese. Something that she and her father were trying out. Since everyone seemed to go out of their way to beat you, Ray said over the counter. At least Hinako was there, Hinata said as she was the only one who wasn't as beaten. Yeah, good for you, Tenten said as she covered a black eye with an ice pack. I wish she was with us, Sakura said with her arm in a sling. I had it and she had to sucker punch me, Ino said as she replayed the scene in her head again and again as my from Nan Man knock her out just as she was about to win. I see that the mission didn't went well, Asuma said getting everyone's attention. No it didn't, Tsunade said. What's the news back at home? Kurenai asked as Asuma had gone to the mail office to get a telegram from the village. Me, you, and the boys are going back, Asuma said making everyone look at him. What why? Shikamaru asked. Butcher has returned and most of the Nins are either going to be walking wounded or will never be able to be a Nin again, Asuma answers. He's back. Shizun said remembering the stories she had heard about him. He defeated the whole village by himself. Kiba asked. That sounds like him, Tsunade said. The only ones who had ever fought Butcher and lived when he went all out were Naruto's parents. Wouldn't that mean that he'll be coming here then? Chuji asked. But there's no way he'll be able to beat metal as he did with the leaf, Shizun said. He's only the strongest of the East after all. Don't count him out yet, Tsunade said. When Naruto's parents were alive he almost killed them more than once. And he knows how to fight against a Kangakure Nin, thanks to his past fights with Kiko. What about our parents? Ino asked. I'm sorry but some of your parents won't be able to be ninjas anymore, Asuma answers. Wait till I get my hands on him, Kiba growled. You'll be swatted away like a fly, Tsunade stated making Kiba growl even more. Besides the Hokage is recalling all Leaf Nins back to help the village now that almost all the Leaf Nins are out of action, Asuma said. We'll leave the first thing tomorrow. At the castle. As you can guess because of the Delmo bloodline that gifted us with lust and full bodies, made us a target for lusting men. There was nothing the early Delmos could do about men's attitudes, but they could accept themselves as they were and not try to change. They didn't hide their male bewitching beauty, nor despise it. Instead they embraced it. Rather than trying to avoid RSNG males, they went out of their way to do so. Men who were turned on and expecting a reward at the end, were a lot more cooperative than a frustrated man. A man with a stiff pecker had a lot harder time fighting than one with a limp noodle. Delmo fighting costumes are designed as much to showcase their bodies as they were to identify their village or clan. They favored wrist braces for defensive armor, counting on their speed to stop a sword blow or other attack. This meant they could usually leave their chests more exposed, which in a way was a sort of armor in itself. This ensured that the men she was fighting would do everything they could to take her alive. And not hit her in her chest. Ms. Karen said as she teach Naruto about the early Delmos. So that's the reason why many of the fighting outfits around here show off the chest area, Naruto said as he sits on a couch in one of the rooms of the palace. Sitting next to him are two of the killer bees Mars and Santamu. Along with Koklako who's busy playing with Santamu's pet monkey and Kataji who is busy making tea. Yes, the reason why the Delmo uniform is so revealing is to get the enemy's eyes on everything but of the Delmo's fist or weapon, Ms. Kane said sitting on a chair in front of Naruto. The door opened causing everyone to turn to see who it is. Both Mars and Santamu let down their guard seeing it was Naruto's grandfather Hunrock. Grandfather, what brings you here? Naruto asked. Your grandma wants to know why you gave the okay for the girls to fight over you. Hunrock said. She's in a meeting right now reviewing the damage that the fight caused on the school. It was amusing to watch, Naruto said flatly. You gave the okay because you wanted something to watch? Hunrock asked. Yes, I did. I wanted to see how far they wanted to get close to me. I was surprised that none of the girls who fought got off that easy, Naruto answers causing Kataji to drop the cup she was holding. It was a good thing the cup was empty. You wanted to see them get hurt? Hunrock asked. I wanted to see how far they're willing to go to have a chance at me, Naruto said. Since everyone just wants me for one reason or another, I will just cut away at them until I have only a handful left. Then I just have to pick one to be my wife and it be all over with. Naruto, don't speak like that, Hunrock said in shock to what his grandson had said. As if you're one to talk, Naruto said looking at his face. I know that you have been playing a game behind my back. Coming up with half-baked plans to help me in some way, for my own good. You're just like the Hokage playing me along to do what you think is right for me. Everything me and your grandmother have done has been to help you, Hunrock said, seeing how deep the scars were in his grandson. Yes, by having personal maids and bodyguards to spy on me night and day for you, Naruto said, shocking the young girls in the room. If they weren't so useful to have around, I would have gotten rid of them. Naruto? Koklako asked. But when you killed that man, you said it was because he hurt us, Santama said. Of course, having to retrain others to be at your level would take time, Naruto said, making the two killer bees freeze as he only saw them as tools and wanted them to last for as long as they were useful to him. They're not here for spying on you, Hunrock said, feeling nothing but ice from Naruto. Sure they're not, and you and Grandma don't keep things that I should know from me either, Naruto said as he got up from the couch. You and Grandma need to keep an eye on me so that there be an heir for metal. But if there was someone else, both of you wouldn't have bothered to get me. I'll be in my room. Hunrock watched as Naruto walked past him exiting the room. Ms. Karen was frozen where she sat, and the two killer bees likewise. Kitaji was busy trying to calm down Koklako, who was crying. What have I done, he said to himself as the old game that he used to play to help people without them knowing backfired on him. Naruto just saw that as a way to get him to do what he and Carline wanted from him. And surprising him with maids and bodyguards had just looked to him as a way to keep eyes on him at all times. He now knows why Naruto always treated him and Carline with indifference. Because to him they only saw him as a tool and not caring what he wanted at all. It's the same reason why Kiko had ran away, because she didn't like how she was being forced to be something she wasn't. He and Carline did many things behind her back to get her to become something they wanted her to be, and they were doing the same thing to Naruto. Elsewhere. Butcher stepped through the doorway into the chamber, leaving a trail of bodies behind him of the jail guards that tried to stop him. He had come to the boiling point, the prison where the most dangerous were sent. If he was ever caught, this was where he would have gone to. But the prison was made to keep people in, not the other way around. It was a simple matter for him to break in and kill a couple of guards and release the inmates to keep the others busy while he find the one he came for. The chamber held the man he's been looking for. He knows that even with his skills, he knows that fighting the Delmos wouldn't be an easy task. He remembers how strong Kiko was. So he needed some backup from an old friend of his. The only thing that could be seen of the man was his sickly white blur of a face, the hairless, sloping skull. The rest of his body has been encased in a block of concrete and his body wrapped in chains. I'm surprised that you of all people came, the man in the block said. Anyone else encased in a block of concrete for over a year now would have died, but I knew you couldn't die this easy, Butcher said. It helps when you don't need to eat, drink, or even breath, the man said. That's why I came, Butcher said. I'm going to need your help, Juggernaut. The only man who said to be more deadly than me asking me for help, Juggernaut smiled. Get me out of here and I'll see what I can do. Good, Butcher said as he walks up to the block of stone. On our way out we need to pick up some more help. Tia pushed open the door to the musty tavern and was greeted by din of both music and various patrons enjoying themselves. There were wine and ale barrels ranked along one side, to the right was a vast fireplace in which a whole hog, goose, and half a dozen chickens turned on a spit over a bed of red coals. Equipment and axe slung over her shoulder, Tia entered the establishment. Upon her arrival she could feel everyone else in the building begin to immediately size her up, but confident in both her abilities and her appearance, she marched nonchalantly through. A few catcalls from men and women who seemed to have had a bit too much to drink were quickly silenced with a patented Tia icy stare. She did not frequent taverns too often while on her adventures, and she wasn't really looking for any sort of action of that nature at the moment, only to finally be able to eat a hot meal and spend a night on a soft bed. The Scarlet Rose was a well-to-do bar that was largely successful due to the high influx of adventurers passing through. With Ironmount being a center of trade, the city always had people passing through the city for one thing or another. Tia could see from the various dress of the other patrons that there was a wide range of different places of metal in this inn. Sitting down at a free table, Tia brushed her tangled blonde hair aside while readjusting the straps on her battle suit that showed a generous portion of her finely toned body. She was just sitting down at an empty table when she felt someone was standing behind her. Looking around, she saw her old classmate Gascogni. "Gascogni, it's been a while," Tia greeted her old friend. "Took me a while to find you," Gascogni said as she sat herself down. "What for?" Tia asked. "Let's just say that the royal family is having some problems and the king needs help from his brother," Gascogni said. "The king's brother?" Tia asked. "And you're the last person I know who has an idea where he is." "Since he left with you after his last visit," Gascogni said. "Since he never stays in one place for long, it's always hard to find him." "Well, it was about 3 weeks ago that we parted ways," Tia said, trying to remember. "He said that he was going to stop by one of the Amazon villages." "Which one?" Gascogni asked. "We were in the eastern part of Metal at the time, so he might have gone to the Gale clan since that was the closest one," Tia answers. "Thanks," Gascogni said as she sat up. "Now I know where to start looking." "Have fun," Tia said goodbye as she watched her friend leave the tavern. The boiling point. Juggernaut, once he was freed from his stone prison, made short work of the thick stone walls of the jail. Juggernaut has a completely inexhaustible stamina, and the ability to survive without food, water or oxygen. He possesses tremendous durability as nothing has the power to cut his skin. Once in motion, virtually no obstacle or force is able to impede his movement. The others in Butcher Group quickly followed the doorways that he left behind, as the riot Butcher caused would only last for so long before the guards get it under control. And Butcher already had everyone he needed for what he had planned, all from the S block where only the most powerful of inmates were kept. Mr. Rictus was once a devout follower of his faith, but after an accident that scarred him horribly, he died on the operating table briefly, and instead of heaven, there was nothing. When he recovered, he started living a life that was drastically different from what he had been before. He lived without a conscience, acted on any thought that entered his mind. He had spent years embracing the light, a light that was never there. What was left was only darkness. He has no conscience, rapes, slaughters, and is known to connect to animals. One of the few who knows Butcher full well but isn't scared of him. Rokotaro, a massive, muscled individual with cold inhuman eyes and monk regalia who wears a wide metal hat. Violent and impulsive, Rokotaro never hesitated to use excessive force in his actions. In combat, he wielded a long Buddhist staff and a backpack holding a variety of weapons, including a rocket-propelled bombs and a flamethrower. Rengoku, a mysterious kunoichi with a unique body and talent for self-surgery. Rengoku can sew replacement or extra body parts to her frame. She has 4 arms and a variety of stitch patterns across her body. Her arms stretch out to resemble spindly spider legs, and she is viewed as a monster by local villagers. She is also quite insane and is also married to Roach. Roach is hulking, gargantuan, and intimidating appearance. He is a rather gentle creature with the mind of a child. He is very mindful and caring of his wife and seeks her approval. The armor strapped to his back resembles a roach's thorax. And even with his size and hulking body can roll himself into a ball, rolling at high speed. Dominique, a killer for hire, has an ability known as the Demon's Eye, which causes hypnosis and sensory paralysis in her foes, momentarily stunning them and making her movements appear immediate. This effect happens when she lifts her eye patch. She is unable to control without a cover. Nobatama, a coquettish kunoichi with long dark hair that she can manipulate freely to attack her enemies. Asum, a surreptitious kunoichi who can extend her limbs into root-like appendages which she can use as weapons as well as merge with the surrounding flora to manipulate their root systems. She works covertly from a safe distance using the roots to attack her opponents. Hakuru, a venomous shinobi with a body covered in reptile scales and a lizard-like face. His skin is thick enough to withstand an attack from most blades. His back is covered with spines that he can rapid fire at his opponent. Magai, a diminutive shinobi that wields a giant spear, attached is a pedal-powered umbrella that spins and flies like a helicopter. Kawahori, a snide shinobi that has gray skin and white hair, complete with pointed ears and fangs. He has a pair of mechanical bat wings granting him flight and controls a colony of bats that he uses to enshroud his opponent. You're really going to go and attack the Prince of Metal of all people in the heart of the queendom? Mr. Rictus asked. This is the reason why you're seen as a greater killer than I am. Yes, but think of the fun, Butcher said, smiling as he feels the old juices flowing again, just like the old days. Back in Metal. Hunrock entered his office where the members of Turks were waiting for him. He had just come back from telling his wife what happened with Naruto. She took the news hard. She wanted to see Naruto, but he told her that he needed some time alone. He only hoped that they'll be able to prove to Naruto that they do love him, not just seeing him as a tool. Well, all of you must have heard the news already, Hunrock said as the girls had run off to tell the others. He was sure that the maids would tell others while the killer bees would keep it to themselves, but with Glycin being Sito's granddaughter and all, knowing Sito, it would be all over the city soon. He thinks everything that's being done for him is only because he's the only heir to Metal, Tifa said. And the personal maids and bodyguards are there only to spy on him, Cloud adds. I can understand why he is like this, Quistis said. He's an important person now, gaining lavish attention from everyone. Compared to before when he was seen and treated as a plague, that everyone wanted dead or gone. So now he has to be cautious on figuring out who wants to just use him or actually be close to him in earnest. Which is why he's always so cold to others, Cypher said. Sad, Fujin shouts out. Yes it is, Pain agrees. How are we going to help him, Raijin asked. That's a good question, Hunrock said. By playing my tricks behind his back to help him in the long run, I made myself be like Sarutobi. Keeping things from him because I think it's for his own good. It's going to be a long and hard road to get Naruto to trust you, Reno said. I know, Hunrock said. He's going to need some time alone before I can talk to him. I have already asked Giscagni to look for my brother for his help. He always had a way to get people to open up to him. That San Nin with the one-tailed demon sealed inside of him is going to have it removed from him like Naruto and send it back to the demon world. He's the only one who can relate to the prince. Maybe we can, Selphie began to say but was cut off by Elena. And have him think we're going behind his back again, she asked. At this rate he'll be just like his grandmother, not trusting anyone around him. And we all know what her rule was like. Whenever she felt someone was doing something behind her back she would have them beheaded, Sang said, having researched the late queen's reign. The last thing we need is for that to happen again. We're going to have to be careful on how we do things for Naruto from now on, Hunrock said. Oh yes, I almost forgot. I'm going to take a trip in a few days. A trip? Rude asked. Yes, it's been a long time since I have been to the element countries. With the ninja exams going to take place soon in the Leaf Village, I thought that I should go there and see how things are. And to give my thanks to Sarutobi and the rest of the village, face to face on how they had treated my grandson, Hunrock said with an underlining tone that all the Turks knew that his visit would be anything but a nice one for the village. A couple of days later in the eastern part of Metal. I'm pretty excited, I've never even seen an Amazon before, let alone get to see one of their villages. Iris happily chimed as both she and Giscagni rode to the side of the caravan they were escorting. Giscagni needed to get to Eastern Metal, and since there was a caravan heading there she and a handful of her soldiers came along to safeguard the traders. But by judging from any of the stories that my sisters have told us, I've heard that they're incredible. The young Praetorian guard let out an excited squeal as she recounted in her mind the many tales that she had heard over the years regarding the exotic beauty of the elusive Amazon tribes. Have you any experience with Amazons before, Gascogni? The plucky pony-tailed redhead turned her captain riding next to her with a curious smile. Gascogni produced an even smile and chuckled a little, thinking about her past encounters with the female warriors. If you're not careful, Irisa, the hunter could very well become the hunted. Gascogni bemused. When it comes to Amazons, it isn't as simple, one might bite off more than one can chew. This only served to pique Irisa's interest even less and continued to bombard Gascogni with less questions. But what are they like? Are they much different from us? They're a very appealing and sisi race, right? Irisa finished her last question with the hint of lust in the corner of her eye that Gascogni did not fail to notice. Yes, it's true that the Amazon people are all very appealing, like us of our bloodline, they are all extremely pleasing to the eye. Irisa was hanging on every word, eager to learn everything about these almost mythic women. However, there are two prominent differences between Amazons and us. First of all, they are noticeably larger than us. Larger? Irisa wondered and Gascogni nodded in response. Yes, even considering me, they still measure about 1.5 to 2 heads taller than I. They are not merely taller but proportionally bigger than a normal woman, each with a lithe and perfectly sculpted form, she explains. Really wow, Irisa said as Gascogni is one of the tallest people she knows. They're also very powerful warriors, they're trained when they can stand to be able to fight. Whenever there's a war the Amazons always march to fight and are always found in the middle of the battles. Which is way that they will only mate with men who are strong so that their children will be stronger. There are a lot of bloodlines to be found with the Amazons, Gascogni adds. The caravan stopped at the entrance of the village, its dimensions held to up close scrutiny amazed many of the women who crowded around while Gascogni took Irisa to meet the village's leaders. The village looked quite deserted, but Gascogni figured it was largely due to the fact that many of the villagers were out hunting, foraging, or tending to the fields around the village. Meanwhile Irisa was ecstatic at the sights and sounds around her as she quickly looked to and fro, trying to absorb as much information as possible. The village was the basis of a semi-nomadic culture with stone and thatched roof dwellings along with a few fields for small-scale agricultural projects. A variety of large trees held a prominent place within the village, blending seamlessly with the many of the homes and sporting highly detailed and intricate carvings up their entire trunk. Although previously warned, Irisa was taken aback by the noticeable difference in size that buildings and objects displayed compared to what she was used to. Agricultural tools were slightly too large to be used by someone of Irisa's stature handily, while a number of chairs set out were high enough to ensure that her legs would not touch the floor but dangle over the edge instead, like when she was a small girl. Thatched roof huts, decorated with appealing symbols, were also built in these larger dimensions and proved to make Irisa feel even more petite than she already was. The village was a fair size. Irisa estimated that this clan would consist of about 100 if the number of buildings were any indication. Gascogni, was all Irisa heard before a tall figure closed in on their position. Before the usually alert captain could react, the dark assailant was upon them and Irisa squeaked out in surprise. In a flash Gascogni was scooped up in a tremendous bear hug. "It's so good to see you," shouted an exceptionally large Amazon as the captain was lifted off of her feet. Irisa was close to falling on her cute rear due to the shock she just received. The woman that had hugged the captain and was now laughing and spinning in place with her captive, holding the still cool-headed woman like one might do to a long-lost pet. Despite being swung around in the air, Gascogni kept her composure. With a warm smile she patted the Amazon on the back. Yes, it is nice to see you as well." Irisa could only stare as the excited Amazon released the smaller captain. Just as Gascogni promised, the woman in front of them was truly a magnificent creature. Towering nearly 3 heads over herself, Irisa could only stare at the incredibly appealing Amazon before them. A short yet wild mane of crimson adorned the woman's head in an unruly manner, while her tanned skin was accentuated with a variety of highly stylized markings covering her body. The finely toned and shapely figure of the Amazon was just as Gascogni described, outside of being proportionally larger it was in every way the body of an appealing and athletic woman. Golden eyes flashed with intensity, framed by a rugged yet regal face that one could gaze upon forever without losing interest. Irisa also appreciated the Amazon's garb, ideally suited for the surrounding arid savannas and forests, was wonderfully minimal to ward off high temperatures while emphasizing her natural charms. And there were more women behind her coming back from hunting on the plains. All the Amazon women were no less than 8 feet tall and incredibly muscular. "What brings you here?" the Amazon asked. "I'm looking for your dad, Laimi," Gascogni stated. "I know that he was around here a while ago." "Do you know where he went?" "He never left," Laimi smiled as her dad had stayed around saying that he wanted to spend some time with his girl and his granddaughters as many of the older Amazons had slept with him. In fact many of the women of the village call him father or grandfather. She pointed to where she and the rest of her sisters had come from. The 2 Delmo women saw a man on horseback coming into the village. He was a big, dark heavyset man who rode a big, dark heavyset horse. Over his mail he wore a jacket of wolf hides. The head from a saber-tooth skin topped his helm. The beast was posed so its fangs jutted forward instead of dropping down in front of his eyes. He stopped his horse in front of the 2 Praetorians and looked them over. "Gascogni of the Praetorians. If you're here it means that my brother needs my help again," the man said in a gruff voice. "Yes, that's right," Gascogne said, knowing that he never liked being called by his title or as lord. "He needs help with your nephew, Prince Naruto. Can you come back with us, lord?" Irisa asked. "Well, it is a family matter," the man said. "And also don't call me lord. Just call me by my name, Howard." Zabuza watched as Naruto used a advanced water jutsu that created a huge pillar of water. They were in one of the small training grounds that the Delmos in training use, as the big ones are only for the adult Delmos and also are located outside the city where the really powerful jutsus wouldn't cause that much damage. Zabuza was amazed at the power level that Naruto was showing, as he had learned such a powerful jutsu in the span of a few hours where even the best would take at least a few days to learn. "How's he doing?" Setsuna asked, appearing next to the ex-Mist Nin. Currently Naruto was controlling the water pillar using hand signs. "His drive to learn is causing him to learn the jutsus that I teach him faster than I have ever seen," Zabuza said. "And the sheer amount of power he puts into the jutsus would drain anyone else but someone with your bloodline. Most jutsus that are too deadly for most nins because of the energy drain, is nothing to us," Setsuna said. She blinked when she noticed that young Nin Haku was busy hiding behind some bushes. "Why are you hiding there?" Since he looked so much as a girl, many of the young girls around here thought he was. Till he let out that he is a boy, and the girls, once they found out, have been all over him, Zabuza said, smiling. "All the girls who don't have dates all want to take me now," Haku said, hoping that none of the girls would find him. "There he is," Strawberry said as she and her friends quickly surrounds the cute-looking Nin. "You're not getting away this time," Tangerina Torta said as she and the others close in on him. "You can't catch me," Haku said as he readies himself to use a speed jutsu, since he couldn't use his blood limit on them, as the last time he did they all used a powerful energy blast to overload his ice mirrors. "Oh yeah," Peppermint Fizz smiled as she gets behind Setsuna and rips open her shirt, sending buttons flying, releasing her large lacy red BR-covered melons free. "Look, Big Bub." Haku eyes pop out of his head, causing him to stand still long enough for the rest of the girls to dog pile on him. "That hurts," Peppermint Fizz said as she holds her head as Setsuna had wrapped her knuckles on the top of her head. "You ruined my shirt," Setsuna said as she looks at her shirt with some of the buttons missing. "Now I have to get it fixed." "Hold him," Orange Blossom shouted as she grabs hold of Haku's arm as the rest of the girls had hold of a part of his body. "Let's get him back to my place." "Mom has all of your moms there for a tea party," Strawberry said. "We can show our moms who we're taking to the dance." "Zabuza, help me," Haku shouted as the girls carried him away. "Sorry, but when it comes to girl problems is where I draw the line," Zabuza said as he already knows too well what length the women of metal would go to get a man. The demon brothers were busy with the women that wanted them and he had been pulled into more than one org. Well, at least that's over, Setsuna said, placing her hands on her peach. By the way, where are the killer bees? Zabuza asked. Well, with what Naruto said to them, they need some time off, Setsuna explains. So, I have taken over for them for the time being. Both Setsuna and Zabuza turned their heads as they felt someone new close by. What are you doing here? Setsuna said, her eyes narrowing. Came to see Naruto, Tsunade said, as this is the first time since the engagement party that she laid her eyes on him. Really now, Naruto said, appearing next to the three adults. What reason could you have to see me? To see if you're doing well, Tsunade said. To see me, Naruto said. Why would you bother to do that after so many years that you could have checked up on me, godmother? You know, Tsunade said, eyes wide. Yes, godmother, grandmother had given me mother's dairy and I know that you and my father's teacher are my godparents. So tell me, why do you suddenly care about me? Is it because you feel sorry for what you have done? Never being there for your godchild while he was growing up in a village that wanted nothing more than to kill him? Never caring for his well-being, only with yourself? Or is it because once I become king, I'll kill every single last leaf nin and villagers, not to mention yourself? He asked her. That's not true, Tsunade said. Why should I believe you? Naruto said. With one word, I can have you dead right now. The Delmos that are hiding around the training ground, to make sure that I'm safe, are more than a match for you. But I have something special planned for you. When I have the leaf burned to the ground, you tied to a post on top of the Hokage mountain will watch as the village that your grandfather built be burned to ash, along with my godfather. I'm sorry for not being there for you, Tsunade said, looking to the ground. At least my grandparents didn't even know that I was alive, Naruto said coldly. But you and my father's teacher knew you had a godson, but both never cared enough till now that I have power to destroy you and the village that you come to see me. What can I do to make it up? Tsunade asked. I see that the old man told you about me, but that happy-go-lucky fool that I used to act like. But that wasn't the real me. That was only a mask that I wore to hide my pain. What you see me is what I am. A young child who had to grow up before I was even 5 years old. I never had a childhood, I was never even held when I was a child, as no one wanted to hold a demon. You must have heard what I think of the maids and the bodyguards around me. I must look cold to you. But tell me, how should I act? I was never loved or cared for growing up. The old man only wanted me to be a tool, a guard to fight and die as my father did before me for the village. I guess he just rubbed off on me. When I look at you, I only see a tool to be used, leading you along with you, thinking that I'll forgive you and the village, till I have no longer any use for you, Naruto said to her. I can only be what I was raised to be. Aren't you happy to see how I raised to be as? Since you and that man are my godparents after all. I know that there's nothing that I can do to make it up to you, Tswanda said. There is a way, Naruto said, causing Tswanda to look up with a faint hope in her eyes. I want you to go back to the Leaf Village and kill every last child under the age of 10 in the village, Naruto said. You can't mean that, Tswanda said, shocked. You didn't care about your own godchild, how I was beaten and starved growing up. Killing off an entire generation of the Leaf Village would be a simple thing for you, Naruto said without any emotion on his face. That's the only way that I can ever forgive you. But you're not going to do that. Instead, you'll just drink sake and try to forget all of your troubles. The only reason why, when grandmother asked me if I would want to have the Leaf Girls kick off the engagement, I told her no. Was because I wanted all of you to cling to some hope that I would forgive all of you, a hope that was never there in the first place. For all of you to have false hope so that when the time comes to destroy the leaf, it be so much sweeter. How could someone like you ever be thought of as being one of the strongest nins of the eastern lands, Setsuna said, looking down at the blonde woman. Always looking for a bottle in hopes to find an answer to your problems, Zabuza adds. Naruto, please, I know that your life was hell, but isn't there a way for us to make it up to you? Tswanda asked. Do you want me to go down on my hands and knees and beg to be forgiven? Swanda pleaded with him. No, I do not. I only want you to die, Naruto said as he walks away from his godmother who was only that in name alone. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 6. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Mad Hat 886 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.